G'day everyone, Matt Elder, Family Bricks here today, and today I've got a very special guest that I'm super excited to interview. It's Mr. Kevin Hinkle. How are you going?
Hello! Thanks for inviting me here.
Well, thanks very much for coming on. Now, people will probably know you a little bit from your 12 years actually working for the LEGO Group. During that time, you had basically 3 positions within it. Matt, you started off in retail and went from a stockist to store manager, I believe?
Yes.
And then after that, you moved into more of a community role and ended up managing the community for North and South America, so attending lots of events, which I guess put you more in the public face, so a lot of people know you from that. And then afterwards, you moved into more of a corporate marketing role. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Are you reading my diary?
Oh, could be. May have just jumped onto your website beforehand.
It could have been that.
So, and then I believe it was like 2017, the LEGO, just as a group, they laid off about 2,000 staff, give or take, and you were part of that. So I guess the thing which I just wanted to start with was recently watching the Michelle Obama Becoming documentary, and when she left the White House, she felt a great sense of relief. What was it like for you once you sort of had that confirmation? Because you guys were told about 6 months in advance something was coming.
Sure, yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I mean, it's a weird mental state to be in a weird place when you're kind of spending an entire year getting ready to lose your job, I guess. it's a weird headspace to be in. I understand that it's not necessarily a new thing or something that people have never experienced before, but obviously for me, that was my first time to be in such an environment. And yeah, we were told by our CEO, like in the spring at some point, that in the course of the year, they were targeting the fall. I think the first date was like September, that due to the dramatic drop, the 2% drop in profit, that there was going to have to be major changes, major organizational structural changes, layoffs, and all that kind of stuff. So they were prepping us in a lot of ways pretty early on through the year. But so I spent most of 2017 really going, all right, I'm going to lose my job this year. Like most of the year I spent thinking that. So it's kind of weird. And in a lot of ways, I guess it was helpful because you have so much ample notice that you're making preparations. And actually a lot of my stuff, like what I do now, as a freelance artist, a lot of those things that I planted all started in 2017. Because I was like, all right, things are about to go crazy, so let me start planting as many seeds as I can. Let me start claiming social media handles. Let me start doing prep work. And when you go back and check like when all these things started, it's interesting because a lot of it was 2017, because that was the year of like something is going to happen this year. So yeah, we had a pretty good portion of the year to prepare to potentially lose your job.
Yeah, because your original background was you got a BA, I believe, in fine arts with like graphic and illustration and stuff like that. So were you at that stage very consciously going through and going, this is my next step, or what was your sort of plan there?
I don't know what my plan was. I think, obviously, yeah, that was something in my mind. And what's interesting is while I was at the LEGO Group, it's not as though I never attempted to bridge my educational background and my passion with my career at LEGO. I actually tried several times. I think I tried 4 times, I believe, in total, through applying for various roles in the art department, and just trying to bring it all together, trying to bridge all of this together. Because yeah, my personal background, my educational background has always been in fine art and being creative and stuff like that. So yeah, it's always kind of been in my mind that I'm like, let me try to find a way to bring these 2 things together. And it never worked out for one reason or another. So I was thinking, is there a way I can explore art on my own or somewhere else? I was also doing a lot of job researching, job hunting at the time. Through the course of 2017, I was looking at other companies and companies that I thought I would be really excited to work at. So that's a short list. That's a very short list. it's like things that I'm nerdy about, things that I am like passionate about. So I was checking the Nintendo job listing sites for their U.S. office in Redmond, Washington. I was checking Nickelodeon, Nick Animation Studios. I was looking at Disney, at Warner Brothers, and I did a little toy. I was looking at Hasbro and Mattel a little bit, kind of keeping it a little close to home. I figured, well, they're going to want someone from Lego, of course. So I kind of was throwing, I don't know if you could call that a wide net or a narrow net, but I was throwing a net out there just kind of seeing. But I did want to, my own art business, like kind of launching my own art business was like my backup plan. It's like, all right, I'm going to see if I can find another job, another 9 to 5, another company somewhere, and then I'm going to also get this stuff ready because I will launch my own freelance business, you know, whatever that means, because I really didn't know at the time. I'm like, maybe I'll take commissions. I see a lot of artists online that do that. Maybe I'll actually sell things like prints or something. I mean, I had very little experience in doing any of that. But so I was planting the seeds as a backup for that, but I was also looking in other places to potentially apply. I can't remember if I actually even did it, if I pulled the trigger or not. I don't think I did. I think I was too nervous. I don't know why, but I was just searching, and I'm like, you know, obviously updating the resume and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, and it just didn't, I didn't find that right role. I mean, I found a lot of jobs and I'm like, I could probably do that, but do I want to do that? And that was the thing that I kept coming back to, because I just felt this kind of pressure on me going, I just spent 12 years of my life building something. Do I really want to start over? And that is I just kept saying that in my head over. Do I want to start over again? And I kept coming back to no. I just kept coming back. No, I don't. And so I just didn't pull the trigger, even all the way up to the end when I was no longer there. And I was like, you know, still looking for jobs. And I'm like, man, I need income. I need to feed the family, pay the bills. But it was more appealing for me. Also, in my self-discovery of how much energy do you put into a company? Do you really matter to that company? And that was also another thing that I was like, oh, I'm not seeing any evidence that I do or did. And so I was, again, that fueled my internal dialogue of, do I want to start over again? And do I want to pour my heart and soul again into another company that may potentially not care? And so I was like, I'm getting double no's. And so I'm like, I'm just going to go, I'm going to do what I can on my own, because I know I will care what energy I put into it. If no one else is, I'm going to. But thankfully, I'm not alone. I'm not the sole income bringer into our household. So thankfully, otherwise we would be eating a lot of ramen. But right now we're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, if you couldn't get one of those other jobs that you're looking at, then McDonald's is looking like a serious proposition.
Hey, I was, you know, as anybody who's a father, a provider, you know, we're going to do what we need to do. Yeah. Like, it's, you know, and I said that, I'm like, hey, if I need to, I'm going to. Like, don't think for 1 second I'm not going to just bite the bullet and take a job anywhere if I need to. And so far it hasn't come to that. And I have looked less and less frequently at other companies and places to get that 9 to 5, just because I feel confident in what I'm doing and how much energy I'm putting into it, and it's beginning to pay off for my own business. But every now and then I'm like, let's see if Nintendo has something up there.
Something up there, yeah.
just to see.
Do you feel also too that the more that you do your own thing, that I certainly notice with the more that I've been doing my own thing, then you start to become more unemployable by companies, because it's sort of like, you know what, I'm my own boss. I can kind of direct the things which I do and don't want to work on. And if I put my energy in, I get rewarded, as opposed to, you know, do I really want to listen to somebody tell me how to do something? Like,
yeah, it's a brilliant point you bring up. And I've had friends say that exact same thing to me. They're like, Kevin, you realize that every month that goes by, you're becoming more unemployable. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I'm not. But I can see that. It definitely is very appealing to work from home and be able to work from home. You know, I won't lie. I think some of the success I've seen in my own business over the last 2 years is because I've had a family that I've had to provide for. You know, that if there's ever a match underneath you, it's kids that are hungry, right? It's like, we want to get fed, you know, not that I have kids. Well, they're always hungry. But, you know, bills that need to get paid, you know, mouths that you have to feed, that's a huge motivator to be like, Kevin, you need to be spending this time and working. And so, you know, I work probably too much, but I'm also in a place where I'm seeing where it's benefiting and where it's paying back. But to your point, yeah, I have the ability, if I need to take one of my kids to an appointment, I don't need to clear that with anybody. Like, I don't need to sit there and go, oh, is it possible I can get off? You know, and that was not necessarily something that was hard to do at Lego. They were usually pretty flexible, but just, I don't even have to do it at all. I don't even have to ask anybody. It's just like, yeah, if I need to do it, I'll do it. Schedules are easy to move around for family obligations or things like this. You know, it's like, sure, I can do it, whatever. Let me check. I'm free. Good. You know, it is very appealing and kind of a really nice change of pace compared to what I had done for so long.
Yeah, because certainly, and we'll put links around it too. You've covered extensively your time with Lego and things like that, and you know, there's some podcasts and whatever. But one of the things,
so many podcasts.
One of the things which I did pick up out of that is, like, particularly when you're doing retail, it's sort of like, even though you're the manager, it's sort of like you would do the crazy hours and you wouldn't ask people to do anything that you weren't prepared to do. So it seems that you've got that work ethic there. It's sort of like, you know. And I've been amazed. There's a 5 or 6 hour time difference between us, and I know I've pinged you messages at times. It's like, it must be 3 in the morning. What are you doing? Like,
look away! Look a shame! Yeah, I'll just say yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Then. So with that, you've talked about there's some properties and things there that you do like. If we go back to the beginning, do you remember sort of how you got into art and illustration, and what sort of your earliest memories of that?
Obviously, I drew a lot as a kid, so that was something that was always on my mind. It's something I was doing, and definitely a fallback passion. You know, whether I was playing video games or playing with Lego, I was also always drawing. And I want to say I was maybe 2 or 3 when I first started drawing. At least that's what my parents tell me. And I never stopped. I just kept doing it, and a lot of experimentation, drawing with crayons, colored pencils. I remember drawing a lot with colored pencils when I was young. But I just enjoyed doing it. I really liked cartoons. I think every kid probably does, but I really enjoyed cartoons as well. And going to the movie theater and watching theatrical cartoons and animated films, and that has not stopped to this day. It has not stopped. I really love animated films and cartoons that I watch them with my children, and I think I totally get something else out of them than they do. But I've always enjoyed that. So yeah, I mean, as early as I can remember, I've always been drawing and doodling and sketching. Even in school, you know, if I'm supposed to be, you know, paying attention to a math lesson or history lesson, I would always be doodling. And it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention. I was actually paying very close attention, but just mindlessly drawing. Usually if I'm doodling or drawing while you're talking, that means I'm actually listening to you. So it's like, you know, that's a good thing. And I've had meetings in the past when people thought they were trying to catch me. So they're like, ask Kevin a question in the middle of a statement because he's clearly drawing, he's not listening. And I just answer right back like that. I'm like, I'm listening. Yeah, it's probably as early as 2 or 3 when I started just drawing all the time. I was very fortunate in that Christmas, you know, comes around every year, and I have a rather large family, and so I was the art kid in the family, right? So I always get a bunch of art supplies every Christmas and be like, here's a pastel kit. I remember getting lots of pastel kits, and I was never a big pastel person. But I'm like, all right, pastels and paints and colored pencils and you know, the deluxe pencil set with all the different leads and stuff on it, and just, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And that carried over through all of my schooling up until high school. Actually, my high school was, in addition to being a regular high school, was also a fine arts academy. So it had a robust arts program it also, very fortunate for me, was my local high school, but you could get approval if you live further away to come to this high school because of its fine arts academy. So I kind of lucked out in that respect. But I was able to take art classes that were not offered in any other high school. Like the high school I went to, they had ceramics, they had pottery, they had we even had figure drawing classes. I mean, there was no nude models. It was high school.
Yeah.
But I mean, figure drawing in high school is kind of crazy. But I took art classes all through high school, well beyond the get your one art credit and you're done. It was like every single year, and obviously went on to art school and college. It's just always kind of been a part of my life.
So with that, I certainly understand, because when I went through different high schools and things like that, yeah, it was sort of like everybody's doing abstractionism and do collage and this, that, and the other. And so like, it wasn't until I was into my 20s I discovered even what life drawing was, and it's the sort of thing you've been looking for the whole time. And then, yeah, you see other, like, it sounds like you had a great sort of like educational background there. So around that time period, what were your sort of main artistic influences? What sort of, really got you going?
Cartoons for sure. Cartoons for sure. I was really, really interested in pretty much all the programming that could be found on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Those were, the big cartoon stations here, and I was usually watching them and trying to mimic them and trying to retell my own stories, but very much borrowing the art styles of those different things. Lots of fan art, lots and lots of fan art. But that really was pushing me as I, for a long time, I was like, I want to make cartoons on TV. That's what I want to do. It hasn't happened yet. I mean, I've made animated things that you could put on your television, so you could say I made cartoons on TV, but certainly nothing professional through a studio or anything like that. But, cartoons was a huge part, continues to be. And I just wanted to tell stories and create characters and share those with other people. And so cartoons was really like a huge inspiration for me.
Yeah, because one of the things I've seen that you got at the moment is a cartoon or a strip or a comic, Bricks in the Middle. Do you just want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been into comics as well, because I think comics are a great storytelling medium as well. And
Marvel or DC?
Oh, man. Okay. For comics, I'd probably say DC.
DC. Okay.
For films, I would say Marvel.
Oh.
For animated films, I'd say DC. I feel like they have like these strengths. And different, I don't know. They need all of our powers combined. So it's just. But for comics, and my favorite comic, by the way, of all time is Superman Red Sun. I think that's a fascinating comic. That's my favorite.
That's the one with where he's basically he's discovered in Russia or something.
Yeah, it's like the Earth. It's like, everyone knows the whole Superman Clark Kent story, but it's as if that story is exactly the same, but it happens like 8 hours later, because the Earth would have turned 8 more hours, and then the rocket would have landed right in Moscow, and that's the whole story. And it's just like, the whole story is so brilliant, because Superman is a creature of his upbringing and where he came from, and he's really incapable of being an evil person. But what would that look like if he landed there versus landing in Smallville, Kansas? And it's fascinating. So that's a tangent, but favorite comic book of all time, definitely Superman Red Sun. I recommend it if you haven't read it. And comics have also been really fun and inspirational to me. I don't have a robust collection of comics, but I have a few hundred. I don't have thousands or anything like that. I don't have like the giant banker boxes of comics, but all through middle school and high school, I would also make comics. I would make my own comics. That was a big thing I did. And they would just be all kinds of weird, fantastical stories, and usually like fantasy things, like people flying around, have magic powers and swords and stuff, very fantasy. And then I finally started working. I got a job, had a part-time job at a grocery store. So I was a bag boy, paper or plastic. And that is when I made my first comic about like my life-ish. So I wanted a comic about a kid that worked in a grocery store, kind of almost as a very obvious maybe homage to comics like Dilbert, where you have somebody who wants to kind of outlet what they're dealing with. Comics. And so
not a Harvey Picar where you're completely down on yourself, American Splendor type deal.
not necessarily, just a way to share it, I guess. And make it lighthearted, make it fun. I try my hardest with everything in life to look at the bright side and be, positive about it. So I had a comic strip that was called Minimum Wage was the name of it. And then I had another comic strip about another job. Then I had another comic strip. But so fast forward to me working at Lego for years and years, I'd gotten, very ingrained into the Lego fan community. And I think we all know the wonderful intricacies of the Lego fan community, things that are very heartwarming and wonderful, and other things that are absolutely out of this world insane. And you're like, what is going on? I don't think that's necessarily limited to Lego only. I'm sure there's other fandoms that have the same thing. But I wanted to tell those stories. I'm like, how do I talk about this? How do I share this in a comic like I've done with pretty much every other job I've done in my life? Took me a long time. Took me many, many years to feel comfortable enough to do it. But I did it eventually, and that was what is now known as Bricks in the Middle, and it follows a fictional character, a fictional adult fan of Lego, as he's diving into the adult fan community. So he's kind of meant to be newish. Like, I didn't want him to be one of those like old guard, been in the community for 40 years. Like, I want him to be kind of like experiencing everything new, so that the readers are kind of experiencing everything new. So he's a newish adult Lego fan. It's meant to be funny. It's meant to make fun of itself. It's meant to make fun of every part of this hobby and this community. I think it does a decent job. People think it's funny. That's all that really matters. But they're just really quick 4-panel comic strips. As often as I can make them, because it's a passion project. There's almost virtually no money made from it. It's just for fun. We do have a merch shop, so if you really like Bricks in the Middle, you can have a Bricks in the Middle shirt, or even Sparks, the main character, his SigFig, or a badge brick, a 1x8 brick if you want to attach it to your engraved name tag. But other than that, it's just free comics I just put on the internet. I'm like, here you go, here's another one.
You just wanted to do a quick plug for the website. Where can they find this? Sure.
bricksinthemiddle.com, or on social media at BITM Comics.
Excellent. We'll put that on the screen when we have it there on the edit.
Sparkles.
I'm not sure my editing skills going to be up to that level, but
okay, never mind. We don't got the budget for the sparkles. Just the one swipe, Star Wars style.
There it is. There, yeah. So, okay. And do you find with that, because obviously you're involved very much in the community, and as you say, you saw a wide variety of that. Is there some ideas where you just got to go, no, I can't say that, or are you like, you know what, it's open season?
There are absolutely things that I'm like, nah, I'm not going to touch that one. So I have a partner with me that works on Bricks in the Middle. His name is Matthew K. And he is basically everything that is not involving drawing. So I draw the comics. I'm like the lead illustrator, a.k.a. the only illustrator. And it was very much like my idea. I birthed it. But I reached out to Matthew really early on because I'm like, hey, I don't know how to build websites, and I don't know about email marketing. I mean, I've worked at Lego, and I can give assets to someone else who integrates it into an email, but I don't know anything about this, and that's actually what he does. He's a digital marketing consultant. And I'm like, would you like to work with me on this? And he's also from the community. He's an AFOL. He's been part of it since I think he was 11. And so he agreed, luckily. And so we work together, and we have a couple different ways where we collect ideas for comics. We've used a Slack board before. We've just used email. We've used text. And when just things come across and we're like, idea for comic, blah, 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 we send it. And we've both before sent ideas to each other, and we're like, no, we're not going to do that one. Just because,
it would be great, but no.
It would be great, but maybe too much. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 100 people might be offended. And that's something that when we were in the infancy of creating that comic, I was very careful to not stray too far in any direction. I wanted to very much kind of stay neutral, stay in the middle, and be able to poke fun at anything. And as often as we can, we make fun of the comic itself, because I think that's only fair. If you're going to make fun of everything else, make fun of yourself. So we make fun of the comic constantly. And that's one of the reasons why the comic is named the way it is, Bricks in the Middle, because it's in the middle of all this.
So it's its own version of kind of Deadpool, breaking the fourth wall, very aware of itself.
Yes. Especially on like the merchandise stuff. The merchandise stuff is exceptionally self-aware.
But then there's other times when you're sort of doing stuff, particularly in business and that, and you go, oh, this will be obvious. And then it's not until you go, here, buy this. Somebody actually goes, oh, okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the only reason we even launched merchandise stuff is because people asked for it, and it was kind of like, really? And that's like the ultimate compliment, I think. The ultimate compliment for any creator is that somebody likes your creation so much that they want to adorn it on their walls or on their body like a shirt. It's kind of amazing. So we had to give the people what they wanted.
Yeah, because then you get the other extent where people swipe your stuff, and it's like, well, you should be happy that it's been swiped. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly. I can say, as far as I know, I've had 2 pieces of artwork ever that were swiped. One of them was a very well-known piece I did of a Lego minifigure as Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. So, you know, the circle, square, and then armed. It was a minifig. It was actually very small drawings, very small pencil drawing. But I had scanned it. I'd uploaded. This was years and years and years ago. And somebody took it and turned it into a shirt. And I don't even know how I stumbled across it, but I came across it, and it was somebody who had like their own Amazon merch store, something like that. And the seller was in the UK. I don't know who it was. I don't have any idea. But it was polos. Like, you could buy polos with my artwork on the like, you know, pocket.
Okay.
And I was like, interesting. I didn't really do anything about it because it didn't seem like it was a massive operation. I was like, somebody just took this and did something with it. And I didn't really see anything about it that made me believe, like, oh, this person's like rolling in dough over there. It's like, nah, whatever. Okay, fine. And I also just kind of felt weird because at the time I was, you know, very much employed at Lego. And I'm like, I'm a Lego employee. It's a Lego piece of artwork that of a copyright that I guess I don't own, but I drew it. And now this person's selling it. Do I want to even get in any of this? I don't think I do. So I'll just turn around and walk away. And I think it eventually got taken down because somebody else reported it or something like that. But that happened. And then another time was that same piece of artwork. That was a good one. That's a popular piece of artwork. It was that same piece of artwork. Someone had taken it and used it as a intro card for their YouTube channel. And I think it was also their profile picture, I think. And I wasn't like necessarily offended. I think I left a comment on it and I was like, oh, that's really cool that you put my artwork in your YouTube channel and on your profile picture. Interesting. It wasn't like a hateful comment or anything like that. I was just like, it's odd. And he reached out to me. I think he was in Italy, I think. And he reached out to me and he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it was yours. I just found it on the internet. I'm like, well, it's got my name on it, actually. And it did have my name on it. And that was actually a really cool story because, you know, he said, I'm really into Da Vinci and making inventions like that. And I'm really into Technic and Lego. And I just thought it was a perfect, you know, symbol of what I do. And I'm like, well, you could hire me and I could draw something for you that better like represents that. And he was totally down for it. He's like, absolutely. And so I was hired officially by him and drew one of the Technic figures, if you guys remember those. The Technic figure as the Vitruvian Man, with the gears in a circle and Technic beams as the square. I actually really liked it. I thought it was a good like evolution of what he wanted. And then it was his artwork, and he had paid me and had the rights to use it in his YouTube channel and on his profile. So that was like a victory. He was really happy. I was happy with it. Those are the only 2 times I know of that my artwork has been taken away without permission.
Yeah. No, I've had a few things swiped over the years, but I've got another friend who was like the lead animator at Disney back in the day, and he's doing a lot of his stuff since, and it's constantly getting swiped. And he then goes, "Hey, look, I'm the original artist of this," and people start attacking him. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, this is an interesting conversation. Like,
I follow an incredible amount of artists online for inspiration, and it does happen constantly. And some of the people I follow do have very large followings, so they're in a position where they go, "Hey, everybody, another person took my artwork. Here's the account. Everybody, go report it." And it like never fails that like the followings like go over there and it's gone.
It's gone.
And I'm like, man, one day. I'll get to that point.
So, just taking a bit of a step back. So you went through, you did your Bachelor of Fine Arts. When you got to the end of that, what was sort of your thinking at that stage of direction that you were trying to go, or how did you go from that to sort of being at Lego?
Yeah, so I started working at Lego, as you mentioned, in the retail area in 2005. And so that was my second year into college, and that was, very much like, I need a job, I'm going to college, hey, that's what you do. And so I never had any ambitions of a long-term, fruitful Lego career. That wasn't anywhere in my mind. It was, hey, there's a Lego store, it's in my local mall down the road from my college. That seems pretty cool. I'll work there while I go to art school. And, just because, and I don't say this to, hopefully not to sound full of myself, but I do go all in on a job. Whether it's a part-time, full-time, doesn't matter. If I'm there, I'm going to go all in on it. And so I was studying, but I was also, busting my butt at work and putting in the hours, coming in when people weren't there, and showing up 5 minutes early, staying 5 minutes late, and just doing the best I could. So in those subsequent 3 years of college, I had been promoted 2 more times. So I had started as a stock boy. I'm a retail sales associate at a store. And by the time I graduated college and was like, what do I do with my life? I'm an assistant manager of the Lego store now. So, it's management. It's management. And that was a salaried role. It's no longer a salaried role at Lego, but back then the assistant managers and the managers were salaried. And so I'm sitting there going, I'm getting a salaried paycheck. I got benefits. This is kind of like, isn't this what you're supposed to want when you graduate college? And I was happy. I wasn't necessarily in any way dissatisfied with my job at Lego. I thought it's been fun. I definitely got more into the hobby, more into the community. It was very much a creative thing I enjoyed. So I was like, okay, what do I do with myself? I'm graduating school. I'm done. I've got my degree. I'm supposed to now get that job, right? I'm supposed to get that job in the field, in the industry. And so I did a little bit of research, not a lot. I was pretty bad. I was like, well, let me look. Nickelodeon's hiring. Oh, nope. Okay. Really, really laxed research into jobs that were open. I did a couple freelance things actually back then, not many. And that was because our professors at the school were all very active in the industry themselves. So that, all the different, and I went to an art school. So, you've got the professors in graphic design, interior design, game design, animation, illustration. So they're all active in the industry. They're all looking for things that they could pass on to the students, which is great. And so those opportunities were coming in pretty frequently. And one of the teachers was like, oh, you should work with this guy. He's doing a commercial for a luxury ski resort in Colorado. So that was the job I took. And I was like, okay. That was kind of also really amazing because that was one of my first ever freelance jobs. I was fresh out of school, and all I had to do was design a character. I wasn't even going to be the main animator on the project. They just wanted someone to design a character.
Yeah, so like concept art, effectively.
Concept art and like character model sheets. Like that's all. And I guess my style stood out. And so my professor had recommended me, and they're like, oh yeah, if you recommend him, we'll take it. And so I only had to do a few drawings of a butler. It was a butler because it's a luxury ski resort. And so I just did a couple different facial expressions. I did the character turnaround sheet. Not really a lot of work. And I walked away with it like a check for $2,000. I was like, this is what freelance is like, huh? That didn't happen ever again. But I was like very spoiled. I was very, very spoiled. I was like, wow, I didn't realize this is what it was going to be like. And then my very next one from a different professor, a poet and an author had a very long collection of books that he had written over years, and he wanted to bring those books into some kind of animated media. He wanted to have like either little flash animations online or something, but take his stories. And so he just needed some help scanning a lot of the drawings in and kind of converting them over into something that could be animated, because a lot of the drawings were actually his drawings. So he was also an artist. Be like, I need someone to take these and bring it into the digital realm, because none of them were digital. They were all, hand-drawn pieces. And I worked with him for months, just taking hundreds of his drawings and scanning them in, cleaning them up, digitizing them, just getting them ready for whatever else he was going to do with them. And that was kind of, I think, a little bit more realistic in what freelance was, because it wasn't as much back then, and it was like kind of a lot of hours. I'm like, all right, this is interesting. And that was kind of it. I did a couple freelance things that was done. I think I threw my hat in the ring for a couple other freelance gigs and I didn't get them. But I'm like, this Lego thing is working out, and I didn't feel the pressure. I didn't feel like a nagging need to go run out there. And I kept saying to myself, well, I always have freelance. I can do that when I always have freelance. And I just kept leaning more into Lego. I was like, I'll do that when it happens. And lo and behold, that turned into another 8 or so years, and having me move across the country a few times, moving up the corporate ladder. I mean, if you were ever to say, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Kevin when you're in college, did you know you're going to be shaking hands with the owner of Lego in Denmark? Okay, sure. That's fine. But I just kind of really just leaned heavy into the Lego career, because I always felt in my mind, that's a backup. Whatever happens, I can go that way. And hey, maybe I could somehow bridge these things together. And like I mentioned earlier, I tried several times to, because Lego has artists. They have illustrators, they have product designers, they've got concept artists, storyboard artists. I mean, they've got plenty of artistic roles in the company. It just never seemed to work out for me.
Work out with it, yeah. Because we did worked on the House of Dots with Lego at the beginning of the year, which was one of the promotional things and that. And they had their own film crew come in and do stuff. So it's like,
it's there. It exists.
It exists. It's all there. So, was that? Do you think? And I don't want to get too much into this, but just keeping on the art flavor, do you think it was just a matter that, in you not getting those roles, it was just that there was more people with merit there, or that you I don't want to say this the wrong way, but you have a very graphic, cartoony style, whereas maybe they were going for something which might have been a bit more rendered or something like that. Was there just a mismatch, or what do you put that down to?
Oh, I mean, if I knew the actual answer, that would be really helpful. I mean, I think everybody, to a degree, when they apply for things and they don't get them, are very hopeful in that they can get tangible feedback from whoever to say, okay, I respect your decision. Tell me why, so that I can potentially get it next time. Never happened. I never, out of all, well, I mean, except for the first time I got an answer and I was like, well, I can't really fix that. But the subsequent times, I never really got very helpful, constructive feedback to be like, I don't know why I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. I do have a very graphic style. Actually, I think the first person to ever tell me that was my high school art teacher. I think she was the first person to go, wow, you have a very graphic style. I was like, I don't know what that means. But it's just like, it's very, I have like a lot of like harsh angles, I think, in my artwork, which I like. I love doing that. But she's like, it's very graphic, and I think you could be like a graphic designer and really go into this. And again, at that time, I didn't really understand what that meant, but I get it now. And I that's my thing. I like to lean into it. I think it's a lot of fun. So that could have been something that played into it. The first time I ever applied to do something art-related at Lego was actually for a role that was concept artist on the Lego Universe game. That was the massive multiplayer online role-playing game that was one of Lego's most expensive investments ever. think it was like $40 million went into the development of it over 4 years, and it ended up being a pretty substantial disaster. But I wanted to be the artist. I was like, let me be the artist. So I applied.
I want to.
It might be sinking, but I want to be on it. So let me be on the boat. So I had gone out and I made a very conscious decision when I was in college to pursue traditional 2D studies. So, stop motion, I studied stop motion. Of course, all the other, illustration, figure drawing, all that kind of stuff. And then animation, I was all 2D, all traditional, hand-drawn. Obviously, 3D was offered as well. And this is, starting to get into the rise of Pixar and CGI animation. And they said, you guys can double major and do 2D and 3D animation. You can learn everything. Of course, your class load will be twice as much, and you might be around for another year or 2 years. But we think, everybody was like, we suggest you do this. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do 2D, traditional, hand-drawn, classic. And so I did. And when I applied for that concept artist, they really liked my portfolio. They sat there, the art director and the game director, and they're like, this is great. You've got a really good understanding of Lego minifigures and kind of that Lego DNA and how things translate into an art form. We just need to know what 3D programs you know, and you're pretty much in. And I was like, oh, none. I was like, not a single one. They're like, oh, you don't know like Maya? I'm like, nope. And so that was like, it was done. And at the time, I felt stupid. I felt like I probably should have listened to all my teachers that said I should have done both. But I don't have really any regrets about it. I chose what I wanted to do for a reason, and I'm happy with it. It's fine. I've got friends that did both, and then I've got friends that just did 3D, and some of them are working in the industry and doing what they are, and some of them aren't. So it doesn't really, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah,
but,
it is what it is. And yeah, certainly similar friends who ended up doing work in 3D animation and things like that. And they work on the big films and all the rest of it, and the workload that they have and the demands and for how little they get paid. It's like, you know what? Yep, you can.
Grass is always greener on the other side. Always.
Yes. So, all right. Then. So then picking up from that, so you come to the end of your time with Lego, you start planting some seeds. Mm-hmm. What were sort of some of the things? Because one of the big things, which I think is you've designed the Beyond the Brick logo.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. They've got to be top 3 or 5 in terms of YouTubers, in terms of size. I think maybe Jane a bit bigger and then 1 or 2 of the others. But
they're in there. They're in the top 10, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
How did that sort of come about, or what's the working relationship with those guys?
That's a fun one, actually. That one was like totally haphazard, I think. So that one had like I have been a huge fan of Beyond the Brick for a very long time. I first met Joshua when it was an audio only podcast called A Look at Lego. That's what it was. And he had come out to a Lego fan event. I believe it was Brickworld Chicago. This was Brickworld Chicago prior to its evolution and moving over to a giant 100,000 square foot expo center. So this is still when it's in a hotel ballroom. So this was years ago. He had come out and we, did a little kind of impromptu interview thing. He was like, "Oh, you're from Lego." I'm like, "Yes." So we, had the typical interview. And then afterwards, I'm like, I really like what this kid is doing, and I like to follow it. And so I went on his podcast later, and I just kept in touch. I've always kind of been a huge, advocate for what they do, because I think they do shine a pretty bright light on what a lot of the community does and shares it with the world. And I get that some people are like, that's not your work. You're showing my work. But that's the whole point. Is I think they're putting a megaphone, not necessarily for their own benefit. I get that they have their own financial gains and all that, but it does put a spotlight on it for the rest of the world, and I think that's kind of amazing. So I've been along for the ride for a long time, for many years, and I've kind of always been that backseat driver to Beyond the Brick. I remember telling them like one of their first kind of course corrections. I was like, hey, I don't think you can name your show A Look at Lego. I think that's a legal violation. So you should probably change that. And I remember telling them, I'm not even kidding, I was like, you should come up with something else. Like maybe something like you guys, like you want to focus on the people right behind the models, like something like Behind the Brick or Beyond the Brick or something like that. Like, come up with something like that. And then it was funny because they're like, we've changed our name to Beyond the Brick. I'm like, that's exactly what I said. I was like, I was hoping you would come up with something else, but that's fine, whatever.
So between that and, sorry to digress, but between that and you're responsible for Ninjago becoming an evergreen.
It's like one of those movies where the character just happens to be at all the major, look, Forrest Gump, right? Yeah. Forrest Gump, where he just happens to be at every
crossroads,
historical moment. So that happened. And they had a logo, and it was like Beyond the Brick, and they had it lined up so it was like a 1x3 yellow brick, like looking down, like aerial, like you're looking at the studs, and like it had like V where the E was like it was an E and an O because it's the stud. Yeah. As a graphic designer, I was like, all right, that's okay. So I was looking at it, and after it had floated around for a while, I remember again meeting up with them at a show, and I'm like, have you ever thought about changing your logo? And I really wasn't trying to be like the salesman where I throw my shoe in the door. I'm like, you ever want, like, I was just like, you ever thought about it? It's kind of like, kind of hurts my eyes a little bit. And they were like, oh, well, what do you think? And I want to say, I can't remember which one of the brothers, but I think one of the brothers was like, do you know anybody that, and I'm like, well, I mean, I know me. I was like, I wasn't trying to, but it was like a very like innocent, organic conversation. And I was like, well, I could try to design it for you, because their logo is one of the first logos I designed. I had like really had little to no experience with brand design and logo design outside of like school, and one or two that I'd done for myself of like my own personal projects. And I'm like, I think I can do this. I remember charging them a ridiculously little amount because it was so long ago, and I was because I actually had done that prior to me launching my own freelance business.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember what year they launched like the current branding, but that was a while ago. That was like maybe 2014 or something like that. So I was at Lego at the time too. And I remember making a point to be like, hey, this is not anything to do with my employment. This is me outside of work, and and I was like, I even told them, I was like, I don't feel comfortable about even talking about this through my work email. Like, we'll talk offline. Like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it that way. Not that there was anything shady about it. I just wanted to separate it from what I was doing. And so I really kind of tried to experiment with that project, I guess. Maybe experiment's not the right word, but like, I'm like, this is going to be like a way to see how I would do these kind of projects in the future. And so I use that as like what do you want to call it? Word is escaping me. It's like when you're trying to prove a case, prove a concept.
Proof of concept, yeah.
That's it. I was trying to have my proof of concept that I could do brand design, that I could do like logo design. And so like I gave them a pretty spiffy package. I don't even do that spiffy a package anymore. But like I was like, all right, let me take your logo. I'm going to brainstorm with it. I'm going to come back with you, and we're going to check in. And it was a pretty fun process. I brainstormed a number of concepts, which is something I still do. I really actually enjoy doing logo design and brand design because I enjoy that it helps people with their like, oh, we have a cool new logo, and I see it on shirts and business cards. It's really fun. But I still have them all. I have all the designs. That should probably be like a Patreon post one day. Is like whole like here's the lineage of how I design it. Like, so I came up with
the mega gold tier,
the platinum. And so I came up with a whole bunch of concepts based on all kinds of different things and plays on the words and obviously Lego DNA like figs and bricks and stuff like that. And I came back with them, and I delivered it, and I said, what are you thinking? And they kind of leaned towards a couple, and it was obviously the one that you see now is the one that won, but it was also one of the most simple concepts, because I said, why don't we just take the YouTube play button and like Lego brick and just put them together? And it was like, brilliant. I was like, well, there we go.
Let's not overcomplicate this.
Let's not overcomplicate. There was some very complicated ones in there. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I mean, it's incredible now to think, I mean, I had no idea back then. I enjoyed their program and I really like what they were doing. But I didn't necessarily think like, oh, these are going to be one of the biggest YouTube stars. Like, I just thought, I really like what they're doing and I hope they keep doing it. But now to think about so many other people that are fans of the work they do. And I mean, I've had those moments like now when I'm at shows like Brick Fair or Brickworld, and I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm like, there's a lot of people wearing things I have designed in this room. And it's just it's an interesting feeling, you know, because especially if you're at like a Brick Fair, because like a lot of the Brick Fair shows are like East Coast here in the US, and they're pretty big, sizable shows. And I designed the Brick Fair logo. So if I'm at like a Brick Fair and I've got like Beyond the Bricks there and they're selling Brick Fair shirts, people are buying Beyond the Brick merch, I'm like, there's a lot of clothing in this room I designed. It's just kind of a surreal moment. But that was a really fun project, and that's I think one of the lesser known ones, because when I designed that with them, again, I told them when we were done and I kind of delivered things over, I said, you know, again, I don't necessarily feel like I did anything wrong, but we should probably not go out of our ways to say this guy at Lego did our logo. Yeah. I'm like, so it's not a secret. I'm not telling you to keep your secret, but you don't need to like give me credit. You don't need to throw my name on anything. And they didn't, you know, they said, no, okay. And so like no one really knew that until I was away from Lego. Yeah. And like starting January of 2018, that was when, thanks to them, they actually they knew Kevin's out on his own. Kevin's trying to get his own business. Let's now, as often as we can, which makes sense and not is overbearing, tell people he's the one that did this. And so when it would make sense, because I've been interviewed by them, you know, numerous times, but after that point, they would mention it. They would say, "Oh, we have Kevin here." And by the way, if you guys didn't know, Kevin actually does not and that was not something they did before. Again, not because we wanted to keep it a big secret, but I was just like, you know, I don't know if my boss or my boss's boss is going to get all weird about this. So just, we don't need to throw my name on it.
You just have it completely separated. Yeah. There's no comebacks on it. Yeah.
And so it is interesting because I did it a long time ago, but it's like now it's like, oh yeah, I did that. It's like, now you know I did that.
So, and just you mentioned there on Patreon, that's another thing that you're doing at the moment. Do you just want to talk about what you're doing with that?
Yeah, sure. Segue. So Patreon is actually really, really cool. It's something that I have followed from not from a creator standpoint, but a fan of other people's work for many years. In case you don't know what it is, it's a platform in which content creators can seek financial help in the form of pledges of fans of their work. So it's really simple. It's got a lot of different people on it. I'm sure those of you that are watching this that probably enjoy other YouTube people, not necessarily Lego YouTubers, but like, you know, people that make music or dive into historical things. I bet you they probably have a Patreon page. It gets mentioned a lot, but it's really easy. You just go in there and you can support your favorite creators. A lot of times for as little as $1 a month. It's a monthly subscription kind of thing. So you could say, yes, I really like your work. I appreciate it. I enjoy helping you bring more of this to the world. I'm going to give you $5 every month. And so you can sign up. For my account, I've got a $1 tier, 5, 10, and 20. So those are the different tiers, and there are different rewards for those tiers. So you can say, hey, I'll give you $1. And in response to that $1, you get a shout out in every video and every live stream I do. So I have a little list I show, and I say, hey, thanks to all these cool people for helping support the stream. So that's kind of cool. But also you get access to like a Patreon page, which is where I put exclusive content that I don't put elsewhere. That's like that developmental stuff that some people really like. They're like, oh, I see the polished final piece, but what did it take to get there? And so I kind of show that kind of stuff. I put polls up. So I got like a poll running right now to ask my patrons what sticker I should make next time. I give exclusive content like process notes, and I explain my thinking, kind of like how did I get to where I got, and it kind of just goes up from there. I mean, the tiers go up. My most popular tier is the $5 tier, because the $5 tier gets a piece of artwork I draw mailed to my patrons. So that's kind of a very coveted, well, not necessarily coveted, a very interesting interesting tier for people that they want to sign up for, and that's just $5, and they get the unique thank you card with a piece of artwork, a hand-drawn piece of artwork in the mail, mailed to them. But it just keeps going up from there. I mean, if you go to the $10, you get a free sticker. If you go to the $20, you get a free print. So you get the print and the sticker and the artwork. So it's just kind of a cool platform where artists and content creators can kind of stabilize that turbulent freelance income, which is always doing this.
Yeah.
It really does help. It really kind of puts your mind at ease going, all right, well, I know I've got this amount of income coming in every month, and that's not a big deal. But it is a subscription site. It's just like any other subscription site. So if things happen, you can always cancel. It's really easy to do it. And it doesn't like hurt the creator. Like, we don't sit there and start flipping tables because you decided to not. It is what it is. We understand that. So, but you can sign up and say, hey, like I had somebody who signed up in March because everything started falling apart in the world. And I put a post out saying, hey, I'm hurting a little bit. If you guys want to check out the things I have to offer. And so he went in and did a $20 pledge on Patreon for the month, and then he canceled out of it. And so I'm like, that's fine. Hey, it's all good. He's like, I wanted to give you the one-time help. And he even was like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to offend you. I'm like, no, it's not. It's okay. But you can check that out. It does help out a lot of other people, not just me. There's hundreds of creators on it. So maybe you can find other people, even in the Lego community, that you might want to support. I'm a patron of several Lego people on Patreon because I do like to pay it forward as well. So I don't just collect. I also support other people too.
They're out there, yeah. So just want to give your particular Patreon a quick plug. What's the address? Where can people find it?
Patreon.com/MrHinkleDraws.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And you've also too, with that $5 a month tier on your Instagram, you actually post pictures of those $5 ones that you send out to people, and they are quite cool. So definitely check that out and consider that there.
Yeah, it's one of my most effective marketing tools. There's been many people that are like, how do you get this? It's like, well, you go here, like, okay. All right. It's like, it makes people, I enjoy sharing my artwork anytime, but it's fun because I have gotten a lot of patrons that have come on board because I posted, and they're like, I want one of those. It's like, well, $5 and you can have one.
This is how you get it. Yeah, I mean, once I saw that, because much the same, I follow a lot of different creators on content and on Patreon and different things like that. And then once I saw that, it's like $5 and you get an original sketch mailed out. That's genius. Like,
Yep. And I'm constantly trying things because I only started it a year and like 4 months ago. So it's still new to me. I mean, there's definitely other creators on there, again, not just Lego, but creators on there that I think use it to its maximum potential. And I think they use it brilliantly. They've got wonderful structure inside of it. And I'm like, whoa. So I aspire to get to that level. I'm just like, I constantly change things. And I tell my patrons on there constantly, I'm like, if you guys have ideas for how to improve this so that you feel as though you're getting your money's worth, let me know, because I'm willing to try anything, because that's really important to me. I mean, I appreciate the people that say, I like your work and I want to support you. Here's $10 a month. But I also want to make sure you feel as though you're getting something worth it. It's not just throwing the money at me. If you want to, I won't stop you. I'll take it. But I want to make sure that you feel as though you're getting something in response to it that's equal your money and your time.
Yeah, there's some artists I know in there, and they just hit the right vein in pop culture, and they're doing 20, 30,000 a month.
I've noticed.
It's like, yes, aspire to that.
One day.
Because you do that sort of graphic, and you do a lot of the sort of Lego and Lego inspired. I mean, I think your Super Mario is basically how I'd want to see a Super Mario CMF figure.
Fingers crossed, right? Hopefully there's some other wave that we don't know about. It's going to come right out after after what we've seen.
So once that comes out, okay, right, this is exactly what it needs to look like.
I'm really hoping.
Yeah.
Really hoping.
So just on that, what are, some tips for people who want to draw Lego minifigures? What do you find just really helps you?
So I think with any kind of, how to draw tutorial, I mean, especially when I was a kid and I was reading books like How to Draw Comics, think of the minifigure as simple shapes. Like, that's what I do, and I think that's what a lot of artists do. The head is a cylinder. Draw a cylinder. The body is it's a rectangular prism. A rectangle. It's got depth to it. But, think about it as shapes. And when you start approaching it that way, it becomes a lot easier. I think people get hung up with minifigures in particular because they're really kind of weird. You kind of have to just delete what you know about drawing human anatomy and the figure and proportions and all. I mean, everything you've been classically trained, get rid of that. Minifigures are kind of these weird, stocky. They're odd. They don't really have knees, but they do have knees because there are things that have knee pads printed, but there's no knees on it. So you kind of have to wrap your head around it. And I have found over the years, I've drawn a lot of them too, and you get better as with anything. Keep doing it, you'll get better at it. But just keep trying to simplify it as much as you can. Don't get hung up on all the weird little details about the arm, and if you pop the arm out, there's a weird little the insert. Simple shapes. That is going to be your friend, and cylinders for the arm, cylinder for the head, square body. I mean, even the legs. I treat the legs as just rectangular prisms too. They're just bendy. Because I don't start worrying about where does it chop in for the feet, where does it curve for the front bump, because it's got that front bump. It's just take it simple, and then start chipping away at it when you're drawing it. I think that helps me, and hopefully that would help anybody else trying to draw Lego stuff. But I think simplify is the key.
Yeah, I know the first couple of times I draw minifigures, it's
madness.
Exactly what you've said. It's
madness.
You spend the whole time, you learn about the heroic 7 heads high, and then you come to a minifig, and it's 2 3/4 maybe. It's just
throw it away. Throw everything you knew. Throw it out. Yeah, it's really easy to get sucked into all the little details and stuff. You start looking at a minifigure hand. The hand, that's a cylinder too. It's just a cylinder. It's a cylinder. Then you start going in and going, well, the bottom of it is sloped up. So it's not a perfect cylinder. Yeah, that's as you polish it. The wrist is not actually round. It's straight on one side and then kind of round and then kind of round because it's got a flat side on the top of it. But those when I notice a lot of people that are trying to draw them for the first time, they're trying to nail those details right at the beginning. It's no, that's where it's going to take you down into the lost woods. You have to start simple, and then you start getting all those little tiny little details and stuff in there.
Yeah, because you've got on recently Beyond the Brick, you've got a couple of 60-second time lapses shorter, and those are brilliant just to watch. I know I've watched some of those and it's this is how I need to keep simplifying.
Yeah, I actually just I gave you a sneak peek, right? Sneak peek.
Oh.
Because I just did some new ones and they have not aired yet. But I mean, I did a lot of these that were all on Beyond the Brick. That was them approaching me and asking me if I would do some of those. But I did. Here's a new one. No one has seen this yet.
Oh.
So they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun.
And they don't, compared to drawing normal American-style superhero comics with all the detail, minifigs can be much quicker.
So, and if you start to feel a little down and you're I can't draw, why can't I draw these? There's actually been a lot of professional Marvel and DC comic book artists that have been drawing their whole lives. And they did Lego variant covers. I'm sure you probably have seen these or know of these. There's a bunch of them. I have some of them in the other room. I can maybe go grab one and show you. Sometimes the minifigures aren't drawn that good. I'm this is a professional Marvel comic book artist or a DC, I'm like, this is not that great. Some of them are great. But it's like there's been a few that I'm like, so you don't feel that bad. You feel bad. I mean, I'll go grab. I probably got the worst examples. Because these are the DC ones. So you've got like Justice League, and dare I say that's probably a CGI render.
Yeah,
like the Marvel ones.
Because sometimes you can get those renderings where they start off with them 3D, but then they draw them.
Yeah.
And then they come back and Okay.
These are pretty good, actually. But I'm pretty confident these are like renders. There's Green Lantern. I'm pretty confident a lot of the Marvel ones. I don't know if I have any of the Marvel ones, but they're all hand-drawn because I remember like there's a Hawkeye one, and he's like standing at a profile, and I'm like, that arm looks really weird. But yeah, so worst examples I could have found, but there's a lot, actually. There's a lot more comic covers, like Lego variant comic covers, and some of those, to my actual point, aren't like, they're not that great. I mean, they're not easy to draw. Minifigures are weird. They're weird things, and when you do draw a bunch of them, like you have to like re-click your brain back into not drawing them, because you have to like, it's like shifting gears in a car. Like you have to shift the gear to draw the minifigures because you got to forget what you know and get into this weird stumpy proportion thought, and then you're done and you need to shift back. Because I always have a little bit of difficulty after I've done a bunch of minifigures shifting back into not drawing minifigure. I'm like, why is this looking stupid? It's looking weird. So it's like a different thought pattern. There's some really good, great artists out there in the community to follow if you're genuinely interested in that. Dan Wiesenmeyer is really, really great. You can find him on everything. Greg Hyland up in Ontario has done a lot of Lego stuff. He used to do a lot of stuff back in the day when DC Comics, Lego DC Superheroes was just Lego Batman. Like just Lego Batman. So if you remember those sets, they had like the comics in like the bottom corner of the box and on the back of the box. That's all Greg Hyland's work on that. So he's done those. Paul Lee in California, he's another great Lego minifig artist. So simplify and also make sure you're looking at folks that are doing it how you think are doing it really well, and get inspired by that. Yeah,
no, definitely, because whenever I've done it, I usually have like a Lego magazine which has got some comics or something in it, just to see, how they're treating the leg, how they're treating the joint. Because simplify.
That is like, I remember that's the one. I'm like, how does a minifigure cross their arms? I'm like, what? I was like, what do you do? So that's another. I've cheated on that too, where I'm like, how did Lego do this? So I can copy it.
Definitely. So do you have any, just following on from that, because the other thing that you do really well is the way that you render it. Is there any particular way that you sort of think about, or any tips you have around once you've done that line art?
Yeah. So thank you for saying so. First of all, thank you. I just go for a very cartoony, cel-shaded kind of look. I think that probably fits in with my graphic style. I don't tend to go realistic at all. I just go for like the very bold shading. I'm like, all right, this side's in the light, this side's in the dark. That's how that's going to be. I love bold outlines. I am all about bold outlines. Anything I do, even if it's a commission for someone else, I'll always throw a super bold outline on it because I love the graphic pop of that. I've had a handful of clients that are like, this is really great. Can you remove the outline? I'm like, fine. I'll kill it. If you want me to kill it, I'll kill it. But I prefer it. I prefer that. So when I'm coloring those in, I'll go for simple shading. Usually, to be honest, I usually don't even do a highlight. I just do like the base color and a shade color. And then I'll ink it, very simplified ink, and then I just give it a bold outline. That's kind of that's how I go about it. In terms of like traditional artwork, even digitally, I'll do that too. Like I'm always going to have the bold outline on the digital because that's a lot easier. I can just go, oh, offset path. Whoop, there it is, done. Like, yes, digital. But sometimes
it hides anything which is slightly wonky. Big thick line.
Oh yeah. Oh, it does. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, especially when you're inking the outline and you're like, whoops, oh, it's gone. That's very helpful. But yeah, in digital too, sometimes I'll do a little bit more in the shading department when I work digitally. Like I'll go, all right, I'll do a couple more layers of shading, maybe a highlight there. But traditionally, I usually just go the base color and then the shadow color, and that's the end of it. Done. We don't need any of the other lessons.
Is there any particular like illustration like that where you've had like a really good response, which either you're just happy that you had the response or it's caught you by surprise and it's like, oh, that was a throwaway drawing and people are responding to it?
That's the best, right? You like that? So the one of the older piece of artwork that I've already mentioned before that got a huge response was that Vitruvian Man. And that was a very long time ago. That was just, something I was doing for fun at home while I was working at Lego in the middle of my career. And I actually did a mini series with that because I had what I titled the Vitruvian Minifig. That was the name of that piece. But I also had Michelangelo's David. I call that Bricklangelo's David, I think. And the farmer and his daughter, with the pickaxe in front of the farmhouse, and the thinker. I think I called that Thinking Minifig. So I did a little series. I did all of those. The Vitruvian Man, though, just poof, it's to this day, it is still I think my most liked Flickr picture. I have a Flickr account. It's still alive, but it's got a lot of attention. Somebody actually just recently, this last month, asked for my permission to turn it into a brick mosaic. So they took the art. And I said, "Sure, go ahead, whatever, take it." So they blew it up, and it's 9 gray base plates big or something, and they brick built it. It's on Facebook. I think they tagged me. So if you follow my art account, it was tagged in it, so you would see it. But that was really cool. So that's gotten a huge response. And now I look back, I'm like, that's so old. I'm still proud of the artwork. I think the artwork came out really good. But it's also interesting because it was just me pencil on paper. It's not that big. It's that big. And I didn't have a really good scanner. So it's very raster. It's not digital vector art by any means. So if you find it on the internet, which you can, it's kind of pixelated, because it's a small picture that I blew up a little bit more to color it digitally. And then other people take it and it's just not that crystal clear of a quality. So that was really great. In terms of recent stuff, I'm always kind of surprised at things that take off, and I haven't really had anything truly take off. It's there's certain stuff that does better than others. I think it's not really a big surprise that very fan culture-y, pop culture-y things do well. Yeah. And when we get into the very deep cuts of well, Kevin did this because Kevin likes it, those don't usually do as well. So I've been experimenting now with stickers. So I make vinyl stickers that I sell. And that's been really fun. I had no experience in it, so I was diving into a new arena. But I'm I can make artwork and I can sell it as stickers. And I did one of the very deep cuts was the late actor Bob Hoskins playing Super Mario from the 1993, I believe, Super Mario Bros. Movie, which is very, received differently compared, depending on who you talk to. And obviously, I've actually sold some, but nobody wants that. Nobody is asking for Bob Hoskins Super Mario as a sticker. Nobody. But Benny, I did, of course, Benny the classic Spaceman. I have sold well over 70 Benny stickers. He's the only sticker I've made that I've actually had to reorder more stickers because I ran out. So it's I guess part of me shouldn't be surprised. It's oh, it's Benny, it's Lego, he's popular. But I'm just surprised that at least a couple people bought Bob Hoskins. It's thank you, Kevin feels all right, Bob Hoskins. And of course I made a John Leguizamo Luigi too, because you gotta have both. Yeah. So you have Mario and Luigi.
If you look into the production history on that original Super Mario Bros. Movie, it's then you watch the film, it's no wonder.
It's so worth it. It's worth watching behind the scenes and watching the film again. It's slowly regaining some kind of affection, some kind. I don't know, some kind.
It's
But I
like,
remember seeing that movie in the theater and going,
Yeah.
"This is terrible." I remember saying,
it's like, yeah, you're like, okay, I kind of get some of this, but what?
"But what is happening?" And now it's a sticker you can buy.
Get it from KevinHinkle.com.
Get your own. Bring in your own Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo into your home.
That's brilliant. Okay, just focusing a little bit on some of your design work, because you've got that at the moment. And I believe you've got a relatively long wait list at the moment. What's your sort of approach to work and dealing with commissions and those things at the moment?
Yeah, so that has been, I think, the most incredible part of all of this is when I was first untethered from the Lego group and free falling, not knowing what I'm going to do with my life. As I mentioned, I'd already planted a lot of seeds. I kind of had things in motion, but I really don't know. I don't know how anything's going to happen. I'm just like, let's just dive into it and see what happens. And so, in a couple different ways, I announced to the world, hey, all you guys, all you Lego friends, because over the last several years, I had built up a sizable audience of people. And I fully appreciate and respect that they're all Lego people. That's why. They're Lego fans, they're Lego historians, they're just people from the community, they're hobbyists, whatever. But they're like, oh, that's Kevin. He's from the Lego company. I like Lego. I like Lego employees. I'm going to be his friend, or I'm going to follow him, or whatever. All the different social sites and all that kind of stuff. So I had a pretty sizable following on all these platforms. So one of the first things I said was, hey, everybody, I'm a freelance artist now, and here's my art account. You can find me here, and you can hire me to draw stuff. And within that very first week, I think I had 8 jobs. And I was like, what? I remember talking to my friends and family going, I really hope I can get some jobs this month. I remember I just hope this is not going to be totally a failure. And I'm sitting there going, week 1, I had 8. And I'm like, okay. And honestly, it has never stopped. It has not stopped since then. So it has not stopped since I kind of started, and it's kind of incredible. My clientele is almost entirely from the Lego community. There's a few that come in there every now and then that are not necessarily in any way affiliated with Lego. And that's usually I've done stuff with the Boy Scouts and stuff like that. We're like, oh, and that's usually because I'm involved somehow else out in there's a connection there.
There's a connection there somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've had to do almost no marketing, no marketing at all, which was something I was very concerned about. I'm like, I don't know. Again, I've got my own experience as a Lego marketing person, and I kind of know I've got some tricks I could try, but I've never marketed myself. I've never promoted my own business. So this was all unknowns to me, and I was very concerned about it, but I never had to do anything with it. So I basically just did that. I just stood up and said, I'm a freelance artist. Hey, everybody, thanks for following me over all these years. I won't be offended if, because I don't work for Lego, you have no reason to follow me anymore, because there are people that do that. It's I'm a Lego fan. I'm going to follow you because you're a Lego employee. You're not a Lego employee anymore. Not going to follow you anymore. That's fine. Whatever. And I had very little people abandon ship. And so they stuck around, which is cool. I have been the one thing I have been doing is trying desperately over the years to bring them over to the art accounts. I'm like, it's like if you just take Instagram, I've got 5,200 Instagram followers, and I've got 1,000 on my art account. I'm like, come on over here. So, but
I smell a giveaway.
I know, right? I'm like,
if you come over here, tag yourself, subscribe.
Exactly. And I've done a few shameless plug posts where I'm like, hey, did you know I have an account over here? And I'll put that on there, and I get 5 come over. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I'm very, very fortunate in that I haven't had to put a lot of effort into marketing. It's really just word of mouth and other people in the community sharing the work I've made for them on social media and tagging me on it and saying, yeah, Kevin did that. And it never fails. It has never failed where I produce something, whether that's a a drawing of somebody's SigFig. That's a big thing I get a lot of requests to do. Is, hey, I have a SigFig. Can you draw it? That's kind of an interesting story how that all started. But,
you then get also sometimes the tag for free.
Yes. I mean, no offense, it's usually from the youngins. I've also been offered exposure bucks. It's a nice joke. I'll give you exposure. I'm like, yeah, well, exposure's fun, but and hey, it's not like I never say no to exposure. There are opportunities where exposure works. I'm like, yep, I'll do that. But you know, going to someone like, I have a YouTube channel, I have 500 subscribers, I'll give you exposure. I'm like, nah, I'm good. But they'll post it online. They'll say, you know, thanks to Kevin, he did this, and then never fails that you know, within 24 hours, I've got 2 or 3 more jobs sitting in the inbox, and that is how I don't necessarily know if it's the right way or the way I'm going to keep doing it, but I collect it through my email. So I do have a website. I have a contact form on the website if you want to reach out for a job, and that when you fill it out, gets put into an email and it gets sent to my inbox. So you can just email me directly, or you can fill out the contact form. That also emails me. If you reach out to me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, doesn't really matter. I'll respond to it. I'll always respond. If it's simple questions, I'll answer it. But when people are like, okay, how do we get started? I'll always say, email me. And I use my email account as like my official queue. So like I'll when I go in order, I'll see when, you know, who emailed me in what order, and I write that down. I've got Post-it notes all over my desk. And that is how I know like what order I should go in, because I do chew through them in the order they come in. So it's like, you know, I try to be fair. Every now and then I will wiggle, because sometimes there are reasons to. It's like somebody reaches out and they go, you know, I'd like you to do this for a birthday gift. The birthday's in 3 weeks. I'm like, if I don't do it now, then you're not getting it for the birthday gift. So I'll try to rearrange, because most people are pretty lenient. They're like, you know, whenever you get to it. But the average wait time, because I've calculated it out, because I feel like it's my duty to tell people what is the average wait, and I've got almost, you know, a year and a half's worth of years and a half worth of experience on doing this, that I can give you what I think is a fair estimate. And so usually it's 2 months. That's usually when, from the moment you email me and say, I'm ready to go, let's start, by the time I give you the final delivery, it's usually 2 months. It hasn't changed. It has stayed that way. I'm usually sitting at any time like 40 jobs in my inbox. And I finished 2 yesterday, and I got 3 more today. So it's just like, it just never ends. And that's a great problem to have, because that's one of the, if you're a freelance artist, you need freelance work. That's the whole point. But I understand and I respect that when people are interested in things, that it can be frustrating. They go, well, I want this guy to do it, but I have to wait for 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 months to do it. Like, that's not, I get it. I understand. And I'm never hurt if people like, I could find someone else. I'm like, then, okay. Yeah. I'm not going to be like, how dare you? Like, if there's someone else, please, you know, go right ahead, and I'm not going to be offended. And I also won't be offended if you go with someone else and then come back later and say, can you do it? Because the other person didn't work out, which has happened a couple of times. But yeah, my average wait time is 2 months. I haven't been able to change that. And I do work quite a bit. My wife says I work too much. So outside of my own homeschooling duties right now, and making like breakfast or lunch or dinner or whatever like that, because my wife works full time, I'm usually working up till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That's usually what I do. Sometimes if I have trouble sleeping, which happens also a fair number of times, I'll try to go to sleep. I'll lay down in the bed. I'll stare at the ceiling for an hour, and then I'll get up and I'll go back to work in the kitchen. That's probably when you see me online. Is when I'm like sitting there. I've had friends who have sent me text messages like, are you really awake right now? And I'm like, shh. Like, that's my response. I'm like, shh. But it's only because like sometimes I got so much stuff on my mind that I just can't turn off. And so I sit there, but I don't consider myself a night owl. I am not like no. I would much rather be asleep. But that's just how it is.
There's just you're perpetually awake, so it doesn't matter night, day.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know if you have the same problem, but I find that most of the time when you're doing art for other people, the things that I'm thinking about the most is the stuff that I want to do. because I feel like I spent so much time thinking about other people's projects and where they're at and where they're going that like by the time I'm laying in bed, I'm like, oh, I need to make those Twitch emotes from my Twitch channel. And I'm like, oh, I should do it this way. If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget. Or, oh, I need to do a new YouTube banner because I need to update that. Like most of the stuff I'm thinking about is my personal things that I need to do.
I'm much the same. I've got a lot of my oil paintings just around, particularly my bed and things like that. And then it's just something that, as I'm going to bed, it's like, yeah, I've got to get to do my own
They're
stuff.
all looking at you.
They're all there. It's like, I need to do that. And it's like, I need to do some oils of Lego minifigs. And it's
they start whispering, hey, work on us. It's like, yeah.
Because, I mean, if you've ever worked with oils, you know that it just takes forever. But the results that you get, like this, for me, having that physical, tangible oil painting, it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, I love the medium. Like I said, I've only done it once. I did it one time. I had like one class in college, and I was like, all right, okay. I'm good. I think it was...
the reason I do watercolors because you can do it fast.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I love the way it looks too.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen watercolor tattoos? Or do you know of this?
I don't know of it. I mean, I've got some friends who do tattoos, so they're always posting their stuff. So whether or not it's part of it,
yeah. Some of the accounts I follow, again, just like for inspiration and stuff, is I like to see really cool tattoos that people have gotten. And there's this like trend that I've seen over the last year or so where they're called watercolor tattoos. And it looks like they're watercolored. It's kind of amazing. Okay. It's a tattoo. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if it's any different than the normal process of getting a tattoo. But like it'll be like, like the ones I've seen have usually been video game inspired. But it'll be like, Mario jumping. And it just looks like a splash of blue watercolor. And I'm like, how do you get that effect in a tattoo? It's just it's really cool. But I like the textury look of watercolor. I think it's very beautiful.
How did you get that effect and get it right the first time? Because usually it's like, for every time it works, there's 9 that don't.
Yeah, you should. I would be interested. Maybe I'll tag you next time I see one. But just to see like what you think, because I think it's like, I mean, you're working with a needle. I'm like, how did you do that? How does that look like that? I don't understand. It's kind of amazing.
You just scour the skin, let it bleed, and then mix into it.
That sounds awful. That sounds terrible.
And if people want to reach out with you and get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
So I have my website. You can find me online at kevinahinkle.com. That's where I have an up-to-date portfolio. Actually, it was just updated like last week, so it's fresh. You can check that out. You can see examples of my past work. You can fill in the contact form if you'd like to reach out about a project. Or you can find me on social media, either personally at Mr. Kevin Hinkle. That's my personal account. It's still open for anyone to follow. It's not like I do super private things, but that's my personal account. And then at MrHinkleDraws is my art account where I just post my work. And that's on everything. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. Anywhere you need to find me, you will be able to find me.
This interview ran for the better part of 3 hours, so I've decided to break it into 2 parts to make it more digestible. There will be a link to part 2 at the end of this video and or around this video.
Alrighty then, if you'd like to be on the show, feel free to drop me a line at matt@mattelder.com. Otherwise, that's it from us here at Family Bricks. Until next time, when we talk about all things Lego and lifestyle. Bye.
See ya!
For part 2 of this interview, you can click here. Otherwise, here are some other videos that you might enjoy. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and be super awesome. Go on, you know you want to. I'll wait. Even give you some more time. It's not hard. Just click that little button, and you're 1 click away from awesomeness.